Russia promised the world a revolutionary jet, the MC-21, their answer to the Boeing 737 MAX and Airbus A320neo, a gleaming narrowbody that Moscow swore would shatter Western aviation dominance once and for all. They announced a delivery date, then another, then another, then another. It is now 2026. Not a single MC-21 has been delivered to a commercial airline. Not one. And what the Kremlin has never publicly admitted is the catastrophic chain of engineering disasters, geopolitical miscalculations, and industrial failures that turned Russia's most ambitious aviation program into a slow-motion collapse. The reason why reveals how deeply aviation supply chains are woven into the Western world, and what happens when a nation is violently cut off from them. Picture this. Russia in 2007 unveils a spectacular vision, a brand new narrow-body airliner called the MC-21, which translates, with no irony whatsoever, as the main liner of the 21st century. The design is genuinely impressive, a composite wing unlike anything built before in Russia, cutting-edge aerodynamics, a wide single-aisle cabin that would offer passengers more comfort than anything Boeing or Airbus had on the market. The target entry into service was set for 2016. The aviation world paid attention. Here's what makes the story so devastating. On paper, the MC-21 was not a copy, not a reverse-engineered ghost plane like certain other programs we know. It was a legitimate, ambitious, clean-sheet design. Russia had real engineers, real technology, and real ambition. The MC-21 looked, for a brief and brilliant moment, like it could genuinely challenge the Western duopoly. But then, everything changed, and it changed in a way that exposes something brutal about how modern aviation really works. But here is what we discovered that will absolutely stun you. Before sanctions, the MC-21 was built with between 40 and 50% foreign-sourced components, American engines from Pratt & Whitney, Western avionics, composite materials sourced from international suppliers. Russia's revolutionary jet was, at its core, a joint product of the very Western industrial system it was designed to compete against. When Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022, that system vanished overnight. The European Aviation Safety Agency suspended all certification work on the MC-21. The United States placed Irkut Corporation on its sanctions list. Western suppliers, every single one, walked away. The Pratt & Whitney PW1000G engines that were supposed to power the aircraft? Gone. The advanced avionics systems? Gone. The composite material supply chains that fed the aircraft's revolutionary wing? Gone. Russia had built its great nationalist aircraft using parts it could no longer legally obtain. Challenge number 1, the weight crisis. Here is what nobody is telling you about the MC-21. In trying to replace every banned Western component with a Russian-made alternative, engineers did something that is an absolute death sentence in commercial aviation. They made the plane dramatically heavier. The fully Russified MC-21 is now approximately 6 tons heavier than originally designed. Think about what that means for a moment. In aviation, weight is everything. Weight determines range, weight determines fuel burn, weight determines whether an airline can make money operating your aircraft. 6 additional tons is not a rounding error. It is a fundamental redesign of the aircraft's economics. The consequences are catastrophic. The original MC-21 was designed for a range of 6,000 kilometers. The Russified version is now estimated to fly a maximum of 2,800 kilometers with a full passenger load. Russia's proudly domestic aircraft cannot even fly from Moscow to Dubai non-stop. Russia's first deputy prime minister, Denis Manturov, was forced to formally confirm the weight crisis and its impact on range at the Eastern Economic Forum in September 2024. There was no way to hide it anymore. And here's the detail that makes no sense on the surface. Russia's engineers are desperately trying to shed this extra weight. Aviation Week reports they've achieved a preliminary reduction of approximately 200 kilograms through advanced manufacturing techniques. Against 6 tons of additional mass, that reduction is essentially invisible. Challenge number 2, the engine catastrophe. Russia's replacement for the Pratt & Whitney engine is called the PD-14, built by Aviation. And on paper, it sounds credible. Russia invested years developing it. It completed certification. It has genuinely flown on test aircraft. But here is where it gets devastating. The PD-14 costs more than twice as much as the engine it replaces. Before sanctions, a Pratt & Whitney engine for the MC-21 cost the equivalent of approximately $8.8 million. A single PD-14 costs approximately $17.6 million. For an aircraft that needs 2 engines, that is an additional $18 million per airframe before a single passenger boards. And the production numbers are genuinely alarming. Russia originally planned to produce 24 PD-14 engines in 2025 for the MC-21. That target was then silently revised downward to just 7 units for the entire year. 7 engines for a program that Moscow promises will deliver 270 aircraft by 2030. But the problems go deeper. Aviation Week and industry experts have confirmed that the PD-14 is far less durable than its Pratt & Whitney counterpart and requires significantly more maintenance. The first operators of this engine are being warned to expect challenging early service due to the engine's immaturity. Russia simply does not have the decades of operational data, the global maintenance network, or the technical supply chain infrastructure that Western engine manufacturers have built over generations. One Russian pilot, speaking to Radio Free Europe, put it with brutal clarity: "We are 40 years behind in engine technology." But here is the twist that nobody saw coming. You would think that with Boeing in crisis and Airbus overwhelmed by backlogs, Russia would have a window, a narrow but real opportunity to sell the MC-21 to desperate airlines around the world who cannot wait a decade for a 737 or an A320neo. It has not happened. It will not happen. The MC-21 has received over 200 orders, but when you examine who placed them, something damning emerges. Every single customer is either a Russian state-controlled airline or a Russian government entity. Aeroflot, which is majority-owned by the Russian government, leads the order book. Rossiya Airlines, also state-controlled, follows. There is not a single genuine international customer. Not one airline from Asia, not one from the Middle East, not one from Africa or Latin America, the regions where Russian diplomacy has been most aggressive. Challenge number 3. The deadline collapse. Here is a timeline that tells the entire story. Russia originally promised the MC-21 would enter service in 2016. Then it became 2019, then 2020, then 2021, then 2022, then 2024, then 2025, then 2026. And in May 2026, Rostec CEO Sergei Chemezov sat across from Vladimir Putin and admitted in a state meeting that deliveries had slipped again, this time to at least 2027. 16 years after development began, more than a decade after the first promised delivery date, not a single commercial aircraft has reached an airline. To put this in devastating perspective, since the program officially entered production in 2017, Russia has completed just 7 airframes. 7! Airbus and Boeing deliver more than 1 aircraft every single day, each. Yakovlev's entire production output across nearly a decade would not fill a single week of Airbus's delivery schedule. And Russia's broader aviation ambition is unraveling simultaneously. Moscow promised 1,000 domestically built aircraft by 2030, instead of the 108 aircraft targeted for delivery between 2022 and 2024. 0 commercial aircraft were delivered. By mid-2025, Russia's entire civilian fleet of foreign-made aircraft was deteriorating faster than Moscow could act. Russia had even legalized the cannibalization of grounded aircraft, stripping functioning planes for spare parts because there was simply no alternative. Aviation incidents in Russia rose 25% in a single year. The Sukhoi Superjet, the MC-21's smaller predecessor and Russia's last attempt at a commercial jet program, has suffered engine fires, emergency landings, and a fatal crash in July 2024 that killed 3 crew members during a test flight. Russian MRO providers had repaired just 20% of the Superjet's imported part numbers by late 2023. The credibility of Russian commercial aviation, already fragile, is fracturing. None of this means the MC-21 should be permanently dismissed. Russia has real aerospace engineers. The composite wing technology was genuinely innovative. The PD-14, for all its immaturity, does represent meaningful domestic capability that did not exist before. Both Airbus and Boeing have internally acknowledged they cannot afford to ignore Russia's long-term industrial potential if geopolitical conditions ever change. But today's aviation market is unforgiving. Airlines need aircraft that can fly 6,000 kilometers, not 2,800. They need engines with proven global maintenance networks, not a domestic alternative with 7 units produced per year. They need delivery dates that do not move every 12 months. They need safety certification from EASA, which the MC-21 no longer has and cannot obtain under current sanctions. The MC-21's path forward is clear but brutal. Until Russia can produce reliable engines at scale, reduce the aircraft's weight to competitive levels, rebuild global supply chains without Western partners who are legally prohibited from engaging, and earn international safety certification, the Boeing-Airbus duopoly remains completely untouchable. The question is not whether Russia can eventually build a competitive commercial aircraft. The question is whether a nation at war, under the deepest aviation sanctions in history, with a fleet of foreign jets quietly cannibalizing itself on the tarmac, has the industrial runway left to find out. If you found this story as jaw-dropping as I did, drop a comment below. Do you think the MC-21 can still recover, or has the window closed permanently? And make sure you do not miss the next one.